Welcome to a little Vinyasa, Friday morning. Loaded with ferret shenanigans, very likely, because they haven't stopped being shenaniganed. So we'll see how that all goes. Are you having a dance party? In any case, if you have a pillow or you have a block or a rolled up blanket that you can stick under your back, you could do that. So you can have a little bit of a elevation, kind of open up your chest. If you'd rather, you can just lie down on the floor without any additional support. Now, once you kind of figure out where the support should go, because some things like blocks really need to be higher up the back. Softer objects you can have down lower, but it depends on how thick it is as to whether your low back is going to be happy. Then you could, if you wanted to, drop your legs open into a little butterfly shape, or you can stretch them out a little more on the straight side. This kind of turns more into a fish pose, sort of supported fish pose. Or if you've been feeling like your hip flexors are kind of tight, you can do this little constructive rest position, sort of allow the femur bone to drop into the socket a little bit more. And that might take a little bit of pressure away. Then you can really focus on this upper chest. Now, I find that when any part of the chain is being mucked with, that it really, hello, you could really choose in terms of letting things relax. So this might work just as well as having the feet on the floor if you have an elevated back. If I take my arm out a little wider, I get a little more of a sense of stretch in the bigger chest muscle. If it's a little bit closer in, it lets my shoulder relax a little bit more, so I get more toward the kind of rotator cuff, shoulder stabilizer muscles. Once you've gotten reasonably settled, and I always give myself a couple, like 30 seconds or so, just to make sure that everything's where I like it. Then we're going to invite this kind of breath awareness meditation kind of moment. So just focusing on the sensation of the breath coming and going. There might be like a little change in the way the breath goes because of the shift in the rib cage. Do like about 4 more breaths or so. So the only thing I'm really going to change is I'm going to get this thing out from under my back. So I'm going to just slide the pillow out and then come back. And then I just need to make sure that I can reach my arms over my head without running into anything. As long as I can get my arms all the way up, I'm good. So check that, make sure for you. And then we're going to put the feet on the floor so that the hips are relaxed. So not too close. It's not a bridge pose, but you know, in that kind of general idea. And then we're going to reach the arms down. So the pinky fingers point down, the thumbs point up. We're going to just stretch through the arms so it's like we're reaching for our heels. And then keep that stretch going as you reach up. And then all the way up over your head. Keep stretching out as far as you can while you're moving. And then come all the way back. Try to notice all the muscles in your arms and shoulders as they sort of kick on and release and take over for one another. The process of lifting the arms over the head is remarkably complex muscularly, but we do it all the time without even thinking about it. It's fun to kind of slow it down and check it out. So we're going to do this one more time after we come back. Get a good stretch. Come all the way back, just keep reaching. When you get to the very bottom, give that one more really good long stretch down. And then we'll take right arm and just lift it right up in the air and shake it. And you could shake it like a little bigger, slower, or you could do really quick and fast. I like to try to get the bones to feel like they're rattling, basically. Let the right arm drop into the left arm. I find it easier to do this with my right arm than with my left, which I think is really interesting. It's not like I'm having to write, but for some reason, the left arm doesn't even want to be coordinated for something so simple as shaking it around. One more breath, and then just drop the left arm and notice how the arms feel. Is the left arm different than the right one? Is there a kind of interesting sensation in the arms? I always get this kind of light feeling, almost like my arms could float when I do these little shaky things. So bring your hands behind your head. We're going to leave the feet on the floor as they are for now. We're going to take a nice big breath. And then with the exhale, we're going to curl up so that we're warming up this front part of the abdominals. And the whole rectus abdominis is responsible for curling the spine in this shape, like contracting to allow the spine to flex. But we're going to mostly focus on this kind of up above the navel part of it. So we're not trying to get too high off the floor, just as high enough that you feel that upper part of the abdominal really connect. We'll get to the lower part in a moment. So just curling in. Press your head back into your hands so that your neck isn't trying to do the job. All right, so now we're going to float the legs up so that the knees kind of ride right above the pelvis. Well, maybe just slightly below the navel, somewhere in that range. And then as you exhale, curl the knees towards the forehead and then bring it back to floating. Now just make sure your low back isn't overarching here. Neutral arch is perfectly fine, overarching not so great. And now we should probably feel the lower abs and the upper abs as we move through this little shape. Two more. All right, so now bringing the legs back down, you can leave your hands behind your head. We're going to stretch the left leg out and let that one rest. We're going to take the toes up on the right leg And just see if you can glide your foot along the floor. If you can, just glide that leg all the way out to straight and stretch through the right foot. Spread the toes, flex at the ankle. Then you're going to exhale, come straight up the middle, curl in toward it. Glide the leg out, give it a good stretch. Curl it in. Glide the leg out, give it a good stretch. Curl it in. Okay, so now I'm going to take that knee and I'm going to come across towards my left elbow. So stretch through the right leg, bring it across, twist up toward it, stretch it out, bring it across, stretch it out. Give it a really good stretch. Try to feel the front of that hip really let go. Curl it in. So now I'm going to bring it out here to this outer arm. It's going to make a little bit of a butterfly shape. As I curl in, then stretch it out, and curl it in, and stretch it out. And one more time, curl it in. All right, stretch it all the way out, and then just for a moment, just pause and see if there's any difference between the right side and the left side, just in terms of the way the leg feels. We're going to leave the right leg in that long position, bring the left foot in. And so just allow that right leg to rest. And you might need to do, because we've been activating that hip so much, you might need to do just a little shimmy, a little shake. Just let it release. And then really try to relax that right leg so that we can focus on the left. So we're going to pick the toes up, glide that left foot out, just slide it if you can. If you can't slide it, just hover it just a tiny bit so that it just glides over the very tippy top surface of your mat. And then bring it in, straight up the middle, glide it out. The glide helps release the psoas, so that's as close to a glide as you can get. Bring it in, let it glide out, and reach through the front of that hip. Try to spread out your toes. Bring it in. All right, so this, now we're going to start the three that take it to the right elbow, so we'll twist. Really stretch out through that left leg. I try to keep my right leg relaxed, but it doesn't always work, so I have to remind myself to do it. All right, so now I'm going to do the three that bring me to my outer left elbow. One. Stretch out. Two. Stretch out. Three. All right, so I'm going to stretch it out. Give both legs a moment to just relax. And just see if there's a difference in the way it feels compared to the last time we checked in. Now we'll repeat those same motions from a downward dog position, but now that we've kind of had an idea of sort of the sense of curling and the sense of stretching out through the hip, I think it's helpful and kind of nice. A little primer for the hip flexor. All right, so we're going to roll into our side. Now, I need a little head support, so I'm going to take that pillow that I had earlier and bring that in. If you have a block or a folded blanket, you can use that. You can let your head rest on the floor if you don't mind that position in your neck. And then the only thing you need to make sure of is that you're not going to smack a piece of furniture as you, or a plant in my case, as you come around with a circle. So you're going to reach out nice and long through the top arm. This is my left arm, my right arm's on the bottom because I rolled to my right side. So I'm stretching my left arm up, and it's the same thing we did overhead, now just a little more complex movement. So we're reaching through the arm and stretch the whole way. So you're really reaching. When you get to this point where you're sort of around the back, you can just smooth it out and come back to center. We're mostly interested in this over the head range of motion. So we'll do it twice more. Then I'm just going to flip myself over and do the opposite side. And again, reaching through the arm. more of those. Well, once we get back to there, we're going to come onto the belly. So hands on the floor, fingers spread out like a little starfish, or, you know, as big as you can get them without straining. And then I've got my fingers significantly, at least a whole knuckle above the top line of my shoulder. So we're going to press the legs down, lift into cobra, press the palms down, and draw the collarbones wide. With the hands in this position, you'll only get so far, but it'll feel really interesting. Come on back down, we're going to do that twice more. Lift, draw the elbows back, collarbones wide. Come on back down. And then one more time. Lift. So we're going to bring the hands a little bit closer to lined up with the chest muscles. Same idea, press the legs down, lift into cobra, press the palms down, collarbones wide. You might feel a little different sensation with the arms put back a little bit. Lift. One more like that. Lift. So we're going to slide the elbows underneath us, right about to hold us in that lift, right? So as much as you made it, you're going to try to hold yourself there. Drop your chin, and then we're going to just draw a little line up and over the collarbone with the chin. You can see, like, can I spy my little toes back there? And then come back, draw a little line up and over. Maybe see if you can spy your toes on the other side. It doesn't really matter if you can see your toes. It's just a landmark to look back toward. I'm going to keep my eyes closed for the most part. So just drawing a line with the chin, like down this collarbone, over to this one and up. As far as my neck will go without causing trouble. One more time. So when you're even on both sides, we'll come back down from the Sphinx. Okay, now, do a little windshield wiper if you like. So we're going to take the hands out about that chest position, but all the way out wide. Point the fingers out if you like. And then we're going to lift, and we're going to play with the shoulder blades. So my intention is to take my right shoulder blade higher, and then try to draw my left shoulder blade in underneath it. So it's like I'm trying to take my right shoulder blade and slide it up, and the left shoulder blade and slide it down. Okay, so you're just going to experiment with that movement, right shoulder blade up, left shoulder blade down, and I tend to look a little to the left because it gives me room to push that shoulder blade toward my neck, and then come back, and then same thing on the other side. So the left shoulder blade's going to go up, right shoulder blade's going to go down, turning my head gives me room to kind of move a little bit more. So right up, left down, left up, right down. One more time, right up, left down, left up, right down. And come on back. I'm just going to kind of jiggle my shoulders around a little. And then I go back into kind of a child's pose, just to give myself a little bit more freedom to sort of move. You could turn this into a cat-cow instead. So wherever you want to land would be fine. Now, we're going to take ourselves into a down dog, providing down dog is an appropriate pose for you. If for any reason it just doesn't seem appropriate, maybe your head can't be below your hips today or something like that, then get yourself on your feet, and you can do these sort of like a down dog on the wall, or from a kind of 90-degree standing forward bend position. So there are options, we can make it work. But if you can do down dog, that's where we're gonna go next. So the first part of this is to, again, kind of play with the shoulders and just lift them and bring them down. And what we're looking for is, where's that position where it feels like my shoulders make the best home on my upper back. Now some people will tell you to try to slide your shoulder blades into your back pockets, but that does not feel normal, nor does it feel sustainable to me. Also, I don't want my shoulder blades so far up that they kind of start to hug up around my ears. So right in between there is kind of the best spot. So find that spot for you. And then you can work on the legs. One heel up and one heel down. And then maybe press down through the heels and scoop up a bit and widen the sit bones. And see where that lands you. Come into a little crouchy dog and then straighten the legs back out. A little bit of a crouch. And then you're just going to wander yourself into a forward bend of whatever ilk is the right one for you. Give the arms a little shake out. And then I've got my feet kind of wide. And I'm going to turn the toes out a little bit so that when I move, I just kind of match the angle that my knee wants to go at. So I'm going to come over so it's not wide enough to be a really deep squat, but it's wide enough to get me towards a territory where my knee starts to move pretty close to the tips of my toes. That's kind of the idea. So I'm just going to kind of surf back and forth, straightening one leg out and then the other. Now right now I'm going with the bent knee, but I'm going to switch that up in a second. Okay, so I'm back to my original shape. So now what I'm going to do is straighten out the front leg, bend the back leg, but stay with the straighter leg. This is way spicier on my hamstrings. And then if I do swing over this way and straighten out that leg, and then swing over this way, straighten out that leg, and then swing over this way, straighten out this leg. I'm going to do that one more time. All right, now, come up halfway. Give yourself a little moment, especially if you've been hanging upside down for a while. It takes a second for your brain to readjust. And then come all the way up, give yourself a nice big stretch. Okay, so then you're going to decide which side of your mat is the top. And if you're like me, you have a lot of options. If you have just a rectangular mat, you probably are going to choose from two. But who says you can't use the shorter edge, the longer edge of your mat as your top? I say you can. So we're going to pause in mountain pose. So point your feet forward, jiggle out a little bit, just try to find that sense that you had of your body sort of relaxing into this pose that you had in lying on the floor. See if you can find something similar to that sense just standing up. So take a nice big breath, reach the arms up overhead, and then we're going to take hold of this right wrist, give it a little stretch over to the left. Come on back, stretch up the center, take hold of the left wrist, give it a little stretch over to the right. Come on back, sink into a chair pose, reaching up through the arms, and then exhale and fold, come up halfway, exhale, fold. So we're going to step back with the left foot. So we get a lunge, for now, we're going to keep the hands on the floor. So if you want, you can use blocks so that your arms are longer, or you can just put your hands on the ground if you've got enough length there. So we're going to straighten out the front leg, send the heel down. Ooh, once I get that stretch through my calf, I'm going to come back to the lunge, kind of push back up onto my toes. Straighten out the front leg, push the heel down. It might be a little on the spicy side, so just be mindful. You don't have to straighten your leg all the way. Coming back to that lunge. One more time. Straightening out the front leg, pressing down on the heel. Now we're going to start down low, which is why this can be a little tricky, so we may or may not wind up letting go. So we're going to take this left foot and lift it up. Lift your heart up, and see if you can find a balance that allows the left hip to stay level with your right hip, so you can really feel that right hip firing up. Now if you can let go and hold the balance, awesome. But if for any reason that's tricky, just keep your hands on the blocks or on the floor. Try to maintain that level hip. So we're going to do that for 2 more breaths, reaching out through the leg. Last breath. Beautiful. So step all the way back. We're going to take both hands to the floor, step back into down dog. All right, so feel the right hip and the left and see if there's a difference. If you like, you can do a vinyasa, coming forward into plank, lower and down, coming into a back bend that you like, and then bringing yourself back into down dog. If you want to skip those, you can just hold the dog. Take a nice big breath. Lift your right leg up behind you. We're coming straight down the middle, curling in. Inhale, stretch through that leg nice and long. Curl it in. One more time, stretch through that leg nice and long. Curl it in. And then we're going to step the foot forward. Now it may not go straight through the center. You can go out to the diagonal. Put your weight on that foot. And then step your left foot up to meet it. Come up halfway. Fold forward. And then come all the way standing. Give yourself a big stretch. See if there's any difference between the right side and the left. And then find your mountain pose. And again, can we find a mountain pose and still find that sort of sense of lying down on the back, checking out the body? So mountain pose with a little more earth mountainy kind of vibe and a little less soldier kind of vibe. Not that there's anything wrong with soldiers, just, you know, can we figure that out? So we're going to take the arms up nice and tall. You're going to grab your right wrist, give yourself a little stretch over to the left. Come back, grab your left wrist, give yourself a little stretch over to the right. Come back, sink into chair pose. Fold forward. Come up halfway. And exhale, fold. So we're going to step back with the right foot into the lunge. Hopefully the right amount of lunge. And then we're going to take just a moment here. So straighten out the front leg, press the heel toward the ground. And then come back up to the toes and push the knee back into place. Feel that stretch through the front of your right thigh. Stretch the front leg straighter, press down through the heel. Come back to the lunge. And then front leg straighter, press through the heel. Come back to the lunge. All right, so then we're going to take ourselves to that warrior 3 with the support, because again, there's a tendency for the hip to want to stack. So we're really going to try to get this hip to be as level as possible, so we really make this outer hip work hard. And again, you can balance. If you can balance, take your hands off the ground and maintain that level hip, awesome. But if for whatever reason that's tricky, just keep the hands down and work on the hip instead. I find it interesting to kind of shift my weight back toward the heel and forward toward the toes and try to maintain that space. Taking 2 more breaths. So this leg is stepping way far back, and then I'm going to take myself into down dog. Again, you can put the vinyasa in there, or just hold steady through your dog. And then we're going to take the left leg up. Exhale, bring it in, curl up around it, stretch it back, give it a good stretch through the front of that hip, bring it in. Stretch it back, good stretch. Bring it in, stretch it back, feeling that space, and then stepping it forward some amount. Bring in your right foot up to it. Come up halfway, fold, and then come all the way to standing. Give it a stretch. And then find your way back to mountain pose. Now, in Qigong, this is called earth posture, or translated as earth posture. Same pose. And I think it's interesting how you might approach it differently if you have not been taught all of those mountain pose things where you rotate the arms out and do all those things. In Qigong, you don't do that. You just connect to the Dantian, which is this, what's called the sea of energy in the belly, and try to allow yourself to get as responsive as possible, right? And so the approach to mountain pose can differ depending on how you how you came to it. But notice instead, like, what if you shift your focus away from holding some sort of muscular alignment and instead try to connect to the sense that you have of yourself connected to the earth. So we're going to shift the weight into the right leg. We're going to try to maintain that connection. Pick the left knee up, and we're just going to hold that position. Now, if you want to, in a moment, you can straighten the leg out and even hold on to the big toe. Otherwise, we're going to hold this position for about 4 more breaths. So if you're holding your big toe, take 1 more breath. And then we're going to let go, and we're going to step back, and hopefully we're going to land in a warrior 1 shape. So we're going to let the hip go to the diagonal so that it matches the ankle in the back. We want the heel to press down into the floor. So the high lunge makes, we're pointing forward, and warrior 1 is just a little bit to the side. We're going to take advantage of that in a moment. So make sure the feet are nicely planted. We're going to take the arms up, and then we're going to peel the elbows towards each other, drawing the shoulder blades in tight, and then push the arms forward. Now, I'm going to use a strap for this thing that we're about to do, but you can do it without a strap. So take the arms back, and then if you can lace your fingers together. This is where I'm going to insert a strap, but I'm going to do it in a second. So then we're going to turn to the diagonal. So we're pointing out, and then we're going to come into bowing warrior, humble warrior. Theoretically, allowing the arms to kind of move up over the back. Okay? So with the strap, I can let my arms come up, but if I just hold on, they don't like to lift anywhere. So now you can play with the shoulder blades. Shoulder blades in, shoulder blades forward, kind of a little to the left, a little to the right. Right? Let your neck relax. So holding steady through the legs, taking 1 more big breath. We're going to release the arms. And again, staying with this position, but giving the arms a little shake, a little rinse. Now, you can straighten this front leg out if you want, but you don't have to. Staying on the diagonal, reaching the arms out nice and long. So it's almost like a downward dog. I'm going to see if I can let that right leg go a little straighter. This gets a little on the inside part of the hamstring spicy. So choose wisely. If you want to do a little less diagonal, you can do that too. Nice big breath. Now we're going to turn this into down dog, so I'm going to wander around a bit, step my right leg back. And again, you can throw in the vinyasa or just hold down dog, your choice between those options. And then we're going to take the right leg up. Now I'm coming across towards my left elbow, so I'm doing a little twist. Taking it back up, stretch through the hip, little twist. Taking it back up, stretch, little twist. Taking it back up, giving that leg a big stretch, and then stepping forward. Put all the weight in the right leg, step up the left. Come up halfway, fold, and then we'll come all the way up to standing. And find your mountain pose. Notice any difference. Okay. So again, kind of responsive, a little bouncy, a little more earthy, a little less soldier, but we're going to try to shift the weight into the left leg and pick the right leg up. And then if you want to, you can grab hold of that big toe. Otherwise, we're just going to hold this for about 4 more breaths. You'll let go of your foot, we'll step back. Try to find that warrior one shape on this side. So again, I let my hip go, turn the ribs forward. Kind of let that back leg be strong. Bring the arms up, hold the shoulder blades back, pushing forward. Good, one more. Now you can take the arms all the way back around and lace them together. Now if you lace your fingers together normally, what happens is they fall in one particular way. Like either your right finger's on top or your left finger's on top. So for this section, just switch it to the opposite side. So what I did last time was I faced my palms away from me toward the ceiling. I'm going to face them toward each other this time. So I'm going to turn my hands inward and almost face them down. So that'll give me a slightly different version in the shoulders as well. So finding that humble warrior, keeping the legs nice and strong. Last breath here. And then releasing the arms. And again, you don't have to straighten your leg very far, but we're going to take the hands out to the diagonal, sort of like a downward dog, and see how straight that front leg wants to go. All right, yogis, so we're going to take ourselves, when you're ready, back to down dog. Again, you can throw a vinyasa in right here, or you can just hold that dog. From downward dog, we're going to take that left leg up. It's coming towards the right elbow, so coming across, reaching it back. Oh, stretch through the front of that hip. Come across, reach it back, big stretch, one more time, coming across, stretch it back, step it forward, bring your right foot up to it, come up halfway, exhale, fold, and then we're coming all the way up, give it a big stretch, and find your mountain pose. Might have to do another Band-Aid. So, take a few moments. And just see if there's a difference in the way your body feels. Now we're going to come into a squat that's as deep as you can squat given your body's parameters and other things. So for me that means the feet go wide and turn out a bit. And then just bring the hips as low as I can bring them. This is about as low as they go right now. So you'll just take yours as low as they'll go. Some people will be able to get very close to the floor. Some of us not so close. But we're going to try to drape our body kind of into this rounded shape, which is malasana. And you can let your arms rest out to the sides or up front if you like. And there's lots of reasons to do a squat, but there may not be lots of reasons today. So you're going to work with your body as you like. We're going to sit down in a moment, but if you need to sit down first, you can go right ahead. Now some people can just drop their hips right to the floor. I'm going to do a little more elaborate sit down. I'll show you in just a moment. Last big breath here. So I shift my weight a little bit to my toes so that I can just bring it back. So we're going to sit down, but for a moment if you want a little child's pose, you can do that. That's sort of like a squat. It's like a kneeling squat. And then find your way into a seated position. And I do this little like send the hips back. But if your hips tend to kind of make you collapse backwards, sit up on the edge of a blanket so that you can find a seated position. Now we're going to do a couple poses again in a moment, but first we're going to do a little bit of breath work. So the breath work we're going to do today is called Viloma Pranayama, and it is a 3-part breath. Viloma means against the grain, so it's not a natural thing to do, right? What we're going to do is inhale about 1/3 of our lung capacity and then hold it as relaxed as possible for a period of time that feels safe to you. Then you're going to inhale another 1/3 of your lung capacity and then hold that for a length of time, trying to stay relaxed. And then we're going to breathe right up to the tippy top. Little extra sip at the top. Hold that briefly and then let the exhale just fall out. So rather than rush the exhale, we're going to try to imagine, you know, like when you blow up a balloon, but you don't pop it, you just kind of untie it and let it slowly deflate. That's the idea, okay? So take 2 big breaths. And just kind of calm your nervous system down a little bit. And we're going to notice what happens. You're going to respond in the way you think is appropriate, all right? So all the air out, and then inhale about 1/3 of your lung capacity, and then just pause as softly as you can. And then inhale another 1/3, and pause. And then all the way to the tippy top. Let the exhale fall out. When you get all the way empty, just take a regular breath. And then we're going to do it again. Now we're going to do 3 more rounds, and you're going to do it with your timing, okay? I always put a breath in between. You don't have to do that, but it helps keep my nervous system calm. So that works for you. Take that little breath in between. one more round. I'm going to take a moment and pick a pose. So you can do a butterfly pose where the feet are together. Or you can pull it in tighter, make it bound angle pose. You can do a wider angle. You can have the legs closer together. So we're going to fold forward in some way. The forward motion may not go very far, right? Because we're going to bring the pelvis forward. And so wherever your pelvis suggests you can move, that's where we're going. And then notice sort of the impact of the pose, but also like notice how your nervous system is functioning, or the way that the body kind of is processing the breath practice. So it's one of my favorite breath practices for a lot of reasons, but primarily because I have such a different reaction to each of those segments. So like the first segment, when I get to the holding part of the breath, I feel like I can hold that breath forever. It just feels really comfortable and really interesting and very peaceful and calm. Now when I get to the second third, there's this point where I can feel my nervous system shift to being a little bit alert. Like, this feels a little dangerous. And it might be something to do with the way the muscles in between the ribs are now stretching, or the pressure that's being put against the heart, I don't know. But I think it's really interesting, right? So there's a little moment of a little heightened awareness, and it's not as relaxed. And then the very tippy top feels so interesting. It feels like my shoulders want to lift up toward my ears to try to make more room. And then as I exhale and let the exhale go, there's a point where my body wants to inhale before we're done exhaling, which I find sort of fascinating. So I try to kind of override that urge and let the exhale come all the way out, which is why that little breath in between helps, because it gives my nervous system what it wants, which is to not feel like I'm gonna suffocate. But but it's very interesting to me. So it's an intentionally, like, you know, it's sort of like when you brush an animal's fur the wrong way. It's not gonna hurt them, but it doesn't feel comfortable. It's an intentionally uncomfortable breath, so that we can kind of learn a little bit about that response that our nervous system has. And through doing it, I've learned a lot about how my nervous system functions and how my breath functions in relationship to, like, when I'm stressed or feeling a little anxious, how the breath begins to change first. And I can kind of sometimes, not every time, but sometimes I can sort of catch myself if I can become aware of the breath change, and I can almost unwind the anxiety before it hits. So I think it's really an interesting breath. Now, you may or may not have those kinds of issues in your life. Come out of your pose when you're ready, give yourself a little rinse. But I think it's really interesting to allow yourself to let your yoga practice teach you, right? So we're not just doing something, we're also learning as we're doing it. We're, you know, like, if you really stay present with your body and these little kind of interesting signals, and you don't have to interpret them. I've interpreted them a little bit over time, but sometimes just being with them is really interesting and enough. Okay, so we're gonna take this into a seated twist. Now you can do any variation on a seated twist. I'm gonna make this very simple and just put my left leg in front like that. I'm gonna twist to the left first, but you could wind the legs up. You could also have one leg straight and one leg bent. So your choice. So bring yourself to a tall seated position first, then rotate to the twist that you're gonna rotate to. Hold on to with whatever you're gonna hold on with, elbows, hands, whatever you got. And then we're gonna play with the head, okay? So twist the spine. Notice if you start to lift off of a sit bone. Try to let your pelvis help you to the whatever degree is appropriate. Like if you wanna get all the way around and put your elbow on the outside of your knee, you're probably gonna need your pelvis because your spine's not gonna go that far. Most of us don't have that kind of rotation. Now, for me, I just twist until my spine's done, and then I stop. Like, I don't feel the need to get that arm in a bind. but if you do, then, you know, use what you got. So now I'm here, and there's a twist in my back, and I can feel it starting right there at the top of my pelvis. There's just like a teeny tiny little bit of rotation down there. When I get to the rib cage, it's really good. And then, of course, the neck. So I'm going to inhale and take my chin out over my right shoulder. And then I'm going to keep the chin as level as I can, exhaling, turn my head over my left shoulder. Okay, that's the movement. Inhale to the right. And exhale to the left. Now, you don't have to do this movement, but I find it really yummy. For 2 more breaths. Now what I might do on the last breath is just hold the twist in one of these 2 positions. See which one I like better. And then take a nice big inhale and exhale and unwind your twist. Pause for a moment. Now whichever way you were twisting, you're going to take that opposite leg out straight. So I'm going to take my right leg out straight, I twist it to the left, I'm going to side bend to my right. And again, you can add a little kind of pulsation of movement to this pose, you can hold the pose. Sometimes it's really nice to change it up about halfway through. Gives me a nice stretch on the side of my neck, which I'm enjoying. Two more breaths. Now, take a big inhale. Very tippy top of that, come all the way up. And then give yourself a little bit of a rinse. We're going to pause here for a moment, let the spine shift before we do the other side. Anytime you mess with your spine, what happens is fluid moves away from different parts of the disc. So when we twist, there's a shearing action that happens in the disc, so it pushes fluid out of its cell walls, so it can collapse some of the cell walls to accommodate the twist. For a side bend, it pushes fluid from one side to the other, so it can collapse part of the cell walls of the disc to allow for the bend. This is problematic potentially if you have herniations or other kinds of things going on with your discs. So you want to be kind. But for healthy discs, that kind of movement of fluid through the different portions of the disc and pushing it out and pulling it back in actually lubricates the layers of cartilaginous material that make up a disc. And I like to try to say the word cartilaginous at least once every day, so thanks for that. We're gonna put ourselves in position now that our cartilaginous material is ready for the next side. Sit up nice and tall, rotate in. And again, if you want, you can do that little movement of the head, inhaling over the left shoulder and exhaling over the right, or whichever way you twisted. Do one more breath and hold the position of my neck and the length of that breath, and then I'll take an inhale and unwind the twist. And again, so I'm going to straighten out my right leg, or sorry, left leg, and side bend over to the left. Again, if it felt nice to you to change it up halfway through, you can change it up. Let me give myself that little stretch through the to kind of stabilizing muscles of my neck. This little guy in the front right here. And then this little guy that connects my shoulder blade to my skull right there. I'll take a couple more breaths holding here. And then essentially I'm just going to inhale up and come around. Alright, yogis, got good news. It's time for relaxation. So since you could either do Shavasana, which is what I'm going to do, or if you would like to, you could do like a legs up the wall, or throw your legs up over your couch, or whatever you've got handy, and do a little bit of an inversion for your final pose. Inversions are nice. So I'm going to come back to the pillow I had at the beginning, and use that under my legs to give myself a little bit more relaxation in the low back. So choosing whatever your relaxation pose is, and then just let yourself go. yet, but you do want to just notice your breath again. Take a nice big breath and stretch out. Give your wrist and ankles a little movement. Fingers and toes. Give yourself a little hug. Maybe a back massage too. It's good to have a back massage. And then when you're ready, you'll come on up. So thanks for joining me for some Vinyasa yoga. Thanks for being patient with my internet connectivity issues. Glad you guys made it. Nice big breath. Big deep sigh. Namaste.